Okay, great. Today is Thursday, January 12th, and this is the Senate Government Operations Committee. I'm Senator Ruth Hardy, and we today have the Commissioner of Human Resources with us, Beth Fastiggi, and thank you so much for coming. And apologies for being 5 minutes late. I tricked the committee by saying 1:20, and they clearly didn't hear me. So we're getting started late. And so apologies, but we'll introduce ourselves to you all and then turn it over for you to just give us an introduction to your department, the work you do, how it relates to our committee and to the operations of government in Vermont. And then we'll probably have a few questions, but we just want to really get to know everybody at this point. So again, I'm Ruth Hardy from the Addison District.
Connie Hosking from the Chittenden Central District.
Rebecca White from Windsor.
Bob Norris, Franklin, and Elbert.
Senator Watson from Washington District.
Senator Clarkson, just in time to introduce yourself to the commissioner.
Which commissioner is it? Oh, it's Beth. Commissioner Beth. I'm Allison Clarkson, Windsor District. It is a total pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Beth Fastiggi. I am the Commissioner of Human Resources for the state of Vermont. I've worked there since 2017. I came to the state government after a 30-year career in telecommunications. I have an engineering degree from the University of Vermont and also a master's in business from UVM. I live in Burlington, New North End, so Senator to my left, is one of my newly elected senators. One of the best things about my job is truly the opportunity to work with state employees and particularly my team at the Department of Human Resources. We have about 100 employees and they're smart, they're really dedicated, they work really hard, and they do that to provide kind of what we call like back office, regular general human resources to state employees and agencies and departments. And that really is just professionalism and the hard work they do makes my job really, it's a great one. So what we do at DHR, talent acquisition, that's really important. So we are in charge of statewide recruitment. Couldn't be more important in this day and age. We have record numbers of jobs to fill in this environment. We've seen a very high employee turnover, and just like the rest of organizations across the country and in Vermont, recruitment is really important to us, and our number of open jobs has increased. We're also in charge of employee onboarding. We work with departments to help them manage and performance manage their employees, so try to get the best work out of their employees and do performance evaluations. We provide managerial support and workforce development, so meaning employee training. So we have kind of the general employee training center across state government. The physical location is at Vermont College. Up at, we call it CAPS, the Center for Achievement in Public Service, but we have a training facility there. We also, since the pandemic, have pivoted to do a lot of training online, which is actually, employees really have embraced that, and it makes it really easier, since we're a statewide organization, easier for employees who are not in Montpelier to get training delivered to them without having to travel, so that's worked out really well. So we do in-person training, instructor-led online training, and we have a lot of on-demand training as well. Compensation and benefits. So that's the really important thing that our department do. So we handle all the wages and salaries, employee bonuses, payroll. So payroll runs through our department. So we're the ones that process your payroll.
We love you.
Again, okay. Today, right? All right. So let us
today? Are we getting paid today?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Oh my God, we get to eat again.
You've been paid.
All right. Leave management and then health and wellness benefits. Other things we do at the Department of Human Resources, employee relations, employee engagement and communications, employee recognition programs, our labor relations, and labor agreements. We have, 2 unions, that at the state of Vermont, the Vermont Troopers Association, they're pretty small. Troopers are their sole focus, and then the Vermont State Employees Association, which is a much larger group and has several different bargaining units. And so we bargain the benefits and wage contracts with them. Let's see, employment compliance, employment law. So making sure we're following all federal and state employment laws. We develop state employee policies from soup to nuts. And so we're kind of run those and manage those. And then general administration work, record keeping, a lot of record keeping. We do the employee engagement survey, which is we ask our employees lots of questions to see, how our workforce feels and see how we make changes, see what we can do. Our annual workforce report, that's a report that I think this group will be very interested in. As Senator Clarkson knows, it's got lots of information about our workforce. So we have about 8,000 employees. It provides information on salaries. It provides information on compensation costs. There's a big section in there about employee turnovers that will be filed tomorrow. So you'll have that in your inbox tomorrow, and it will be online as well. So
And we sometimes get like a little Bible for this committee.
had you would have got the Bible had it been next week that I was here, but I will get.
No, we would have waited to have
I will get.
We'll have it sent over.
I will bring you one. And it is available online, but it has lots of great information about our
Terrific.
reports.
It's a huge resource for us.
Very popular reports. Let's see.
Like the tax expenditure report. I would say those are the 2 reports.
So exciting.
I find the workforce report reading for me a little more interesting, but for me.
Then tax expenditures?
Which is important because it's all the great stuff we do. Our challenges this year really have been all around all the work it takes to hire staff, train staff, and the numbers have really increased. So I just thought I'd run over a few of the kind of interesting facts that you will see in more depth in the workforce report. But it's let's see where we are. Oh, did I lose my fact sheet? I am losing this. Here it is. Okay. Total separations from state government. So out of workforce of about 8,000, we had 1,131 employees terminate employment at state government. So that's mixed up of that includes voluntary terminations, retirement, and then involuntary terminations. This year, traditionally, we've had about 500 voluntary terminations every year in that range. Last year, it was over 740. So that number has gone up by
A lot.
by a lot. By a lot. We're at 10.1% of our terminations are voluntary versus typically are about 6%. So that's where the big change in turnover, our turnover rate of about 15%. Really came from that jump in voluntary communications. Retirements were a little lower than last year. Involuntary terminations is pretty much relatively small, but that's where we really challenge. So if it's just some of those recruitment efforts, really trying to get out there, try to write creative job descriptions to get people interested in the jobs. We've also seen fewer people apply for the job. So we have to work harder to get people to apply for those jobs and using all the new social media, anything that we can do to find people. So we used to kind of just post jobs and just let people come to us. Now we proactively seek out. So we use national databases where we can find employees and we'll actually directly email people and say, hey, this is a job opportunity that might work for you.
Why don't we, is this a clarifying question? Okay. We're gonna hold questions until you go through your spiel and then we'll have, yeah.
And I think that's it. I just want to, that's one of our biggest challenges right now is about workforce. We've done a great job recruiting and hiring people. We've hired more people than ever this year, but unfortunately, also the turnover has happened. So we're really about the same place at employee levels as we were last year, where we do have a lot of openings. We're at about a 12% vacancy rate, which is abnormally high.
So that just makes your job constant.
Yeah, we've been very busy. Yes, very busy, but
What's your normal thing?
8 to 9%, I would say.
Or lower?
And it depends by department, but all departments, not all departments, but the vast majority of times, 80% of departments and agencies have had that high turnover.
Yeah.
So every department is really struggling and doing their best to try to attract people.
Yeah.
And retain people. So one thing that has really helped is our ability to work remotely. So when you're in work that doesn't necessarily require the employee, you're not working in a 24-hour facility, the ability for people to be able to work remotely is pretty attractive, so that helps. A lot of the employees in human resources do a lot of their work remotely, and still been able to continue, and that really helps with their work-life balance, and it's worked out really well for us.
That's great. Senator Zagorski.
So I have 2 questions, one related to recruitment and how you're engaging with our CTE programs, colleges and high schools, and if you're finding that effective.
We have, I would really like my manager of talent acquisition in there to answer it. We do some engagement with the high schools. Actually, Bill Myers is our manager of talent acquisition, and he, at least once a year, I know he goes into Essex Technical Center and talks about recruitment. That's where he lives. We don't do that necessarily at all of them, but we're trying to engage them more and more, especially for departments like Agency of Transportation and Buildings and General Services, where they might have jobs that are really trade oriented. So it is, it's a good opportunity for us. And I can't say exactly how much we're doing, but we are aware of those opportunities and happy to talk to you more about that too.
Awesome. And then my other question is around retention. Is your office also working on ways to have better retention? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've done over the past couple of years is revamp our employee onboarding program. So we have a program that every employee in the first 6 months, it's kind of an orientation that's lasting them 6 months. And it's also a kind of a guide for supervisors saying, even before that employee is hired, reach out, before they come on their first day, reach out to them, let them know what their first day is going to be like, and then we'll help them map out what their first week should look like as an employee. So just making that employee experience as welcoming as possible. And we also require several courses that new employees will have to take, which is new in the past, since we have had this program now for about 3 or 4 years. So those types of things that make people feel like we're a part of something bigger, and this is what we expect from employees, is one way to help with employee engagement and retention. Some departments and agencies had robust orientation and onboarding programs previously, but a lot of smaller departments didn't have anything structured. So that's one of the things that the Department of Human Resources do. We kind of look and see what department might be doing something really well, and then try to kind of take the best practices and bring those out to all state governments. So all agencies and departments will have that benefit.
So do you do exit interviews with employees who have chosen to leave to get a sense of why people are leaving and not staying?
We do. It's not a centralized program within the Department of Human Resources, so we don't necessarily keep that data. Our HR business partners a lot of times participate those and keep the data, but we don't have a great central depository. So usually they'll more share those with the appointing authorities, and we'll look at trends. And everyone's leaving because if it's for pay or if it's something else, and we're noticing trends. And we're really finding that it's those first 5 years of employment where we see the highest levels of turnover. And generally, it's kind of the data shifted so that the average age of employees has actually gone up a little bit. And that's because we are having that turnover in the younger employee population. So that the amount of people of the younger ages has actually decreased a little bit. So it's the first time we've kind of seen that a little bit. But you wouldn't think so, as baby boomers were aging and retiring, we still actually had a little bit of an increase in the average age of our employees. So that's something that we're always looking at. How do we engage newer employees and how do we keep them interested? And one of the really great ways we keep them interested is, or one of the great things that we can offer in state government is we have a great benefits. We have great benefits. We have a really great healthcare plan. So that's something that we really, someone was just telling us today, like, we really need to sell that more because that's one of the reasons why a lot of people stay working here is because we have a great benefits plan. So.
Good to know. Senator White, did you have?
Yeah, is this question time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Unless, is this okay for?
Yeah,
questions
and
you
I
have?
know you've heard a lot from some constituents about the new Medicare Advantage plan. or,
Let's hold off on that topic. I want to get through the sort of base stuff, but was your question? So we'll wait on that. Did you have a question, Senator Clarkson?
I
Or was
did.
that your question?
That was part of my question, but I have another question.
Okay.
Which is, as you know, Senate Economic Development and House Commerce and the governor are all on the same page as we look at workforce and looking at our retirees to come back to help fill some of our gaps during this sort of workforce crisis that we're experiencing. And I'm just, as I recall, ACCD coined it returnships. So returnships, are you able to reach out to your very happy retirees with all these fabulous benefits and saying, how would you, because we've went through it in this committee, coming up with a way for teachers to be able to do that. Are we looking at our retired state employees to come back maybe for some time limited ones like pregnancy, parental leave and stuff? Are we looking at that body to use?
We look at everybody to come back. I mean, we love to have, retirees come back, especially, on a part-time basis or a temporary basis because, they know how state government works. If they're, if they can go work in the department where they were working for when they're retired, that's a big help. There's less training needed. So we love that. There are, as some of you know and some of you don't know, but you probably learn, we have limits on how much people can work in the temporary capacity. And then if a retiree comes back into a classified position, and we'll probably find out more about classified and exempt employees as you go through the committee, but if they came back as a classified employee, then their pension would actually freeze. So what you did for the teachers is a little different. So we do bring retirees back, but it would be for a more of a limited capacity. Once they start getting into a classified role or a permanent position, then they would no longer be retired and not eligible for their pension. That would freeze. So most choose not to do that. But we are very successful in getting retirees to come back on a part-time temporary basis.
The part-time piece
Yeah.
is sort of what I was really.
Yeah.
Are there other questions before we jump into the Medicare Advantage realm? I wondered if you had any legislative priorities, things you wanted us to work on, things you wanted us to not work on.
Yeah, so we don't have any particular legislative priorities this year. I am one of the administration's lead on paid family leave. Our department is administering the new paid family leave insurance program that we're first delivering to our own employees first, July 1st, 2023. The following year that opens up so employers can offer the insurance, and then the final year after that it will be opened up so anyone can buy the insurance. So I am one of the administration's leads on that. So I know that paid family leave is something that the legislature is very interested in, so I feel like I'll be talking on that. Our retirees and our unions have brought up concerns regarding a new Medicare Advantage program that we're looking to roll out for retirees. And so I am also your point person on that. As far as otherwise, it'll just be, we're very interested in having the legislature approve our budget as well, so that we can continue to operate and do the things we need to do for states and employees. So I'm not asking for any seeking any legislation at this point.
Well, those two topics you brought up are definitely of interest to the legislature. And do you want to go ahead and ask the question specifically, or if it was just general, you want hear your response?
It's a concern that I've been hearing. I know Senator Clarkson, Windsor County, we have a lot of state employees who are retired, and there's no specific question other than
What's
the
going on?
plan. Yeah.
Sure.
Why?
Yeah. And I know you brought some people, if you want to introduce them
Yes.
also, that would be great.
Yes, I have Clark Collins with me. Clark is our Deputy Director of for Benefits and Wellness. And Steve May, he is our Healthcare Benefits Consultant, one of our Healthcare Benefits Consultants. So they have a lot of the details, and I do have information for you. I can just kind of do a brief summary of what I'm doing, and if I can find my actual starting point in my notes, that would be helpful, but if I.
Did you submit anything?
I submitted a one-page summary.
On the Medicare Advantage.
And regarding Medicare Advantage.
Okay, great. Is that?
So there's a one-page summary that you guys hopefully.
Oh, should we be pulling it
No,
up?
you don't have to follow along. It's just a reference. It's gonna have, you probably don't need to take notes because a lot of things I'm gonna say are on that one pager, but yeah, it's just, but you can just follow along, and I can kind of give you an overview of what we're trying to do, if that works.
Yeah, and if because we started late, which is on the committee, not you, we only have a few minutes before we have our next witness, who's probably waiting in the hall or on Zoom. And so if you want to just give us a brief overview,
Sure.
and then we will certainly have you back to talk about this in a more sort of focused way. So.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we manage healthcare benefits for state employees as well as retirees, so state retirees. We manage those healthcare programs for them too. The unions bargain our healthcare benefits, for example, with our co-pays, our deductibles, level of coverage. And I said they both have excellent healthcare coverage. We are required by law to provide retirees the same benefits we provide to our state employees. We contract with vendors to administer those benefits for active employees and two groups of retirees. Retirees who are under 65, and then retirees who are 65 and over, who have Medicare as their primary insurer. So once you get to be 65 years old, you go on the federal Medicare program, and then our insurance becomes secondary and kind of wraps around and fills in the holes that the Medicare does not cover. So for retirees who are Medicare eligible, we provide that coverage. Group Medicare Advantage plans are new to Vermont. So, but we are very encouraged by what we've seen in other public entities in the state of Vermont and how they've designed Medicare Advantage programs to provide that wraparound for their retirees. And so taking their lead, when we were bidding, we asked for pricing on a Medicare Advantage plan that we designed to mirror our active employee plan. And we worked really closely with experts like Steve's company, as well as other experts, to design a plan that would mirror our state employee plan. The plan that we've designed should be confused with what you're seeing on TV and advertised in the individual Medicare Advantage market. That's kind of like a buyer beware scenario, and you have to really do your research and know what you're buying, because there's varying levels of plans. A lot of the plans really limit the network of where people can get their coverage. So that's that's something that has given Medicare Advantage plans a tough rap to kind of start out with, and this comes under the same name. But under the state's customized group plan, Medicare eligible retirees and their dependents would receive the same coverage as their current benefit. It's Medicare with the state plan supplement. And contracting the benefits in that manner, we'd be able to provide lower rates to the retirees and the state as well. So on average, save about 20% a year. Our rates just went up 11% January 1st. So
Excuse me just one second. I'm
We
really
had
sorry.
capacity manager. I
Yeah,
apologize.
Sorry. Should we put the little? Go ahead.
So rather than, it's okay. So our retirees and our state employees, the coverage just went up. Rather than going up, if we had been able to move to this type of plan, their rates would have actually have gone down. So the benefits really of moving to this structure would be both the retirees and the state would have immediate savings, about $9 million a year we would be saving. Retirees would receive better or equal benefits to what they're receiving now. We would see a significant reduction in our OPEB liability, which is other post-deployment benefits. So it's healthcare benefits for retirees. We carry a liability for that, just like we carry a liability for pension. So moving in this manner would significantly lower that liability. We met with many groups. We met with various stakeholders, the VSCA, the Vermont Retired State Employees Association, to explain the benefits of this plan. You probably, if you've seen through emails, there's not a lot of support out there for that. I think that's really based on a lot of misinformation and fear rather than the facts. It's not unprecedented what we're trying to do. I said other public employers have gone in this direction. So really close to home, the teachers retirement system, their age 65 plus program last January moved to a Medicare Advantage for that group. It's gone really well. UVM has moved in that direction as well as Vermont State Colleges. So
Is it the same one? Is it the same plan?
none of them are the same plan because they're all customized for that group.
But is
And
it the same company, is I guess my question.
No, there's two different companies doing it and they're, the treasurer's office is with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Vermont State Colleges is with Cigna. UVM was just changed. So they were on a Medicare Advantage plan through Blue Cross and they just moved January 1st to Cigna. But all Medicare Advantage type plans where the federal Medicaid program contracts with insurers to run the program and take the risk rather than Medicare doing that. And they do that by getting so the federal government provides them incentives to run these programs. And that's how the insurance companies are able to offer this at a reduced price from what we can do in our regular self-insured plans.
Can I ask, what is the timeline for this? Generally, things start January 1st, but this has not gone into effect, right?
This is
So
not.
what is your,
We haven't determined the timeline yet. I would like to do it as soon as possible because I think it's better coverage and because everyone's going to save money, but we need to make sure that first of all, we would need to shore up our contract with our vendor, which we've bid all these out. So we need to get that done. And then there needs to be time to wrap up and we need to provide communication. So significant communications to the retirees who would be affected so they understand what's happening and so they know how to do that. So that would be all a part of it, a communication plan, including town meetings if people want to attend those. But until we have a plan and a date, it seems somewhat premature to do that.
Senator Pinkowski?
There would also need to be legislative change to allow for this, correct?
Excuse me?
There would need to be legislative change to allow for this. My understanding is the law currently reads that the state employee retirees get the plan that is bargained for.
So they get what is bargained for, absolutely. We are required to provide them what is bargained for. Currently, retirees over 65 do not have the exact same plan because Medicare is primary and they have to supplement. So this is the exact same scenario, except the procurement is different. So there's not a state employee health plan. The state employee health plan is accumulation of the plan design that we have, that we've negotiated, and then how we contract that out. So from our perspective, we do not need any legislative change to do this.
May I just tag on?
Yes, Senator Clarkson, and then I'm gonna go. So go ahead.
No, I just like to tag on to Tanya's question because a change this significant, or at least that's perceived as this significant, and it sounds like there may be some misinformation. There's clearly a lot of fear out there because the volume of emails is substantial. When a change is this significant, is that then not bargained additionally and separately?
What we bargain are the actual benefits, so things like co-pays, deductible, what types of things we include in our plan. So for example, in our last bargaining in 2021, we bargained a new hearing aid benefit. We previously didn't cover hearing aids. We bargained that benefit, and then it was effective January 1st. Now we have a hearing aid benefit.
Good, yes.
So we have that benefit. And interestingly, on the plan that we have designed for the 65 plus retirees, we said, you know, this is our new hearing benefit. This has to be covered. Oh, we can't do that exactly. Is it okay if we provide a little better coverage? That's absolutely fine. So where the insurance company isn't matching exactly, they're doing better.
So I guess you bargain the elements of the plan, not who provides the plan.
Correct.
Got it. So that is why you don't feel that you would need legislation about this change. You're providing the same benefit, different provider.
And
Is that my simplistic understanding of this?
I think that's a pretty darn.
Same benefit, different provider.
So I'm gonna.
Similar, except for the Medicaid piece, Medicare piece, excuse me.
So this is obviously a topic that we're all interested in.
Yes.
We've been hearing from a lot of our constituents, and there's a lot of concern. We're also hearing from the retired employees
Yes.
later today. But the intention today was to just introduce you, get introduced to you, not put you in the hot seat so soon. And so
She's used to it.
well, and I think that we all need to hear from our legislative council. So I think we'll have you back specific to this topic, and you can bring whomever you want with you at that
We're
point.
happy to come back. And in the meantime as well, I'm happy to refer any constituents as well to us.
Oh.
And we're happy to provide that information. And then,
Who do we refer?
yes,
That's
I mean,
No, but you're not gonna answer
have
all
a
those
lot of-
emails. I mean, we don't have, you have
I answer
staff.
a lot of
You have
them.
staff.
I do have staff,
You
yes.
do have staff.
Well, so that is a very nice offer, and in the meantime, so maybe I need to talk with our committee assistant about our schedule, but if not next week, the week after, we'll spend a day with all the parties at our legislative council, because I think there is definitely a difference of opinion on the legal aspect of this and whether or not you have the authority in statute to do it. So we'll need to dig into that a little bit more. But so, you know, for now though, I want everybody to leave feeling welcome in this room, and I want to just thank you for your time and thank you for coming to talk with us, and we will have you back, and thanks for the important work
Well, I
you do on
appreciate
behalf
it.
of Vermonters.
All right, take care.
And on
you.
behalf of us too, because you are, we're basically state employees of the.
You sure are. Without all the.
We just want all the
These programs you're talking about
Yeah,
sounds
so-
great.
So anybody in this committee is welcome to apply for state jobs and come work for the state.
In that, halfway through December,
Exactly.
that great song name.
Could you let the people who are waiting know that they,
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
just want the same benefits that you give the rest of state.
You guys are in charge.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Clark.
You should draft it.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, take care. Do you want to check and see, it should be the LCT, Karen and
There she is.
Yeah, it was just
Ted,
typical,
is
we're
Ted
doing
coming?
loose math, so.
There he is.
Hi, guys. Sorry
Karen's
to
on her
keep you
way.
waiting. We are already on behind.
And Karen's gonna take the chair.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
wallflower sitting
Karen, you're up to bat.
You have the perfect number. We have a 3-person limit beyond us. Thank you for waiting. I'm sorry that we're already running late. We are just wanting to get an introduction to all of the people in our area and your organizations, your legislative priorities, the things you want us to work on, the things you don't want us to work on.
That's a long list.
So first we're gonna introduce ourselves and then introduce yourselves, and then committee, because we're running late, because we got started late, we're gonna probably not get the break that's scheduled, just so you know. So if you need to leave for whatever reason, take care of yourself, but we're not gonna take the 2:30 break. I am Senator Ruth Hardy, and from the Addison District. And before you go, I'm actually
Olivia Parker, I'm the committee assistant.
Good to meet you. Senator Tanya Dehopsky from Chittenden Central.
Hey, Becca White from Windsor.
Senator Bob Norris, Franklin, 1 to include Alberg out of Grand Island.
Senator Watson from Washington.
Allison Clarkson, Windsor District.
take it away, Karen.
Thank you so much. A lot of friends in this committee. So I'm Karen Horn with the League of Cities and Towns, and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy. And with me is Gwen Zekov, our municipal policy advocate, and Ted Brady, our Executive Director. So we're sort of the team that's going to be in the State House with you, Gwen and myself, on a daily basis. We represent all 247 cities and towns. Thank you, Essex Junction. We follow about 300 bills that affect local governments during the course of a year. And we'll take this opportunity to tell you why. But we're a strong Dillon's rules state. So that means that municipalities can only do those things that the legislature gives them permission to do in the statute. And if a town wants to do something that's not in the statute, then they need to come to you with a governance charter change that's been voted by the people and ask for permission to do that. And the legislature needs to ratify the charter changes. I also wanted to mention to you that we did send our municipal priorities over to you yesterday digitally, which is a good thing because my husband spilled his cup of coffee on all the hard copies this morning. So I'm glad you like no paper.
Yeah, we're in now no paper. So
I
this
love
should be on
paper. I just
the
want to
website.
say, I love paper because you can write on paper, you can keep paper and find it fast.
So do you want a clean
I do have a
copy
paper if you would
or
like
one with, she has a couple.
I do have a
copy.
I love
Copy.
But we're not all, we don't all feel the same way about completely digital. It's great to refer to digitally, but it's always also great to have this.
So we cover a lot of issues, thanks, Gwen, that come to your committee. Public safety issues, all the governance issues, open meetings, which hopefully.
I gotta go on it.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. And expanding municipal capacity. And one of the things we wanted to highlight this session to committees is that municipalities essentially have one source of tax revenue. That's the property tax. There's 25 towns that have a local option tax of one variety or another, sales or meals, rooms, and alcohol. And Eden, I'll just point out, Eden just has a rooms local option tax. So so that really limits the capacity of local governments to undertake all their responsibilities and do what the legislatures ask them to do and what their citizens are demanding of them. We're hoping that we can have that conversation in the money committees this year and talk about the potential maybe for some kind of revenue sharing or assistance that would help build capacity at the local level and give them some of the resources needed to undertake some of these responsibilities. And Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York all do have some form of revenue sharing. There are some of the actually less than half the states around the country that have revenue sharing, but we'd love to have that conversation with you and anyone else who will listen.
Can I just clarify? I mean, my understanding is that we already have revenue sharing with local option tax. There's a percent that goes to the state.
So if you have a local option tax, you put Burlington and Rutland City aside because they're not subject to the same restrictions. But if you've adopted a local option tax, 70% of the revenues stay at the local level. 30% of the revenues go to the state.
Right. That's
and,
revenue sharing.
It's only for those, I think we're thinking about it in different ways.
It
So
must be.
the town retains 70%.
Right.
The town has to elect to impose a local option tax on themselves. The legislature has to ratify that.
Right.
And all the towns that don't have local option tax don't have access to those revenues. The 30% goes to fund the pilot that pays for state buildings and state
Right.
in local government. So is that the piece you're thinking is revenue sharing?
I think 70-30 is revenue sharing.
Okay, might have a definition.
Yeah.
Senator Watson.
No, well, I was just gonna jump into that, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm happy to talk about it
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
Do you wanna, why don't we let Karen
yeah,
finish
keep
her
going. I just
spiel,
was
and we can,
surprised by that because
So really, that's all I had by way of introduction. And then I was going to ask if you might give Gwen a moment to talk about the open meeting and town meeting bill.
yeah, oh, the bill that's in the House right now,
Yeah.
we're gonna have you back
Okay.
to talk specifically about that bill. Olivia will reach out to you, probably it's gonna be next Wednesday is when we're
Okay.
trying to do it. Is that,
All right.
you can work it out with
Yeah.
Olivia on the timing, but we don't have the bill yet. We haven't looked at the bill yet, even though most of us know what's in the bill. We'd rather go through the bill with Ledge Council before we get testimony on
Okay.
it specifically. But we will definitely, you're on our list.
Yeah. And then ask that you hear from our
Yeah,
esteemed executive director.
excellent. Well, before you leave the table, any other questions for Karen specifically at this moment?
Yes.
I'm just a little curious about these carve-outs for Burlington and Rutland and how they are treated differently than the rest of the cities and towns.
The Burlington and Rutland have authority in their charters that they've had for decades, really, to adopt local option taxes. And Burlington has something along the lines of a gross receipts tax that they have adopted, but that's longstanding authority. So, and then, not to get too deep into local option taxes, but then there's about 60 towns that, because they were giving up revenues when Act 60 was passed, the education funding law, they are authorized to adopt local option taxes without going through the legislature, but most of them don't. Almost all of them come to the legislature with a charter amendment.
Thank you. I just didn't know that history.
Yeah, yeah.
One question actually on the bill, which is H, I can't remember.
42.
42. I just, you are wanting to move as quickly as possible on it, I'm assuming, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The authority expires January 15th.
15th, right, so we're not gonna probably 15th is Sunday, so we're not gonna.
Yeah, our messaging to at least our members, and it probably should be for state government as well, because everyone follows the open meeting law, is that all warnings, all meetings, everything has to go back to the, normal open meeting law next week, so done accordingly.
Oh, so I hadn't understood this is a bill not only about town meeting, but about open meeting, period?
There is a temporary provision in law that's in play.
Oh, no, I know, I put in a bill to.
Oh, I see, yeah, so there's that
Tucker didn't tell me that there was.
So this is just an extension of the temporary provisions that were in play that allowed for remote meetings. So this would extend it out until next year, until a broader based open meeting law conversation.
Yes, so we are gonna have both the short-term conversation and the long-term conversation, but the short-term conversation first next week, so we can get the bill through. And then we'll come back to having this broader conversation. We'll obviously have you guys for both those conversations. Senator Watson.
Yeah, so I guess I do have just a clarification about the revenue sharing, just so that I want to make sure that I'm understanding the way I think you might be, but are you thinking because the state is funded through income taxes, that it's a share of the income tax that would potentially, that you would envision being shared going to municipalities?
We're not specifying a source for that kind of a program, but we would ask you to look at what towns are able to do right now as a result of the ARPA direct aid funding that's come to them, and given them some opportunities to think about doing things that have been on the books for years and they've never really had the wherewithal to undertake. So, and that's unrestricted aid from the federal government. It got sent to the towns. They get to do what they want with it.
Okay, since you spoke about the ARPA money, I wonder, have you, there was a research project that was undertaken by Middlebury College about the ARPA funding. Have you seen that? I will send it to you because it's kind of interesting about the, talking about what the towns have in Madison County have decided to use the money for versus what the citizen survey has shown that the citizens of the town want the towns to use it for. It's really interesting. I haven't dug into it all totally, but I've read a little bit about it. But I'll try to get it to you and have you and connect you with the professor, because I think it's kind of an interesting case study of the use of funds versus public outreach and how some towns did it seemingly on the button and some missed the mark.
What a great study.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I wish they would do it.
It's short, it's only some town, not even all the Addison County towns, so it's not statewide, obviously, but it's still an interesting case study, I think.
So I would also suggest that you might want to have Katie Buckley come in to talk about ARPA and the federal funding assistance program that you guys funded last year at VLCT.
Okay.
And she's had conversations with towns all over the state about, framing projects.
Katie Buckley.
Katie Buckley. I was just going to actually bring that up because Katie is now, I understand, not just ARPA funds, but now all federal funds. So it's going to be the infrastructure bill and the
Inflation Reduction Act.
Exactly, the Inflation Reduction. Anyway.
And whatever comes out of this Congress.
Exactly. So Katie is a huge resource and a huge resource for all of us to know about for our town.
Yeah, and she's going to have she's going to have a presentation that she's sending to all legislators in the next week.
Oh, great, excellent.
Thank you for that.
We look forward to having her in. Ted, did you want to come up and chat?
I sure do, if I have an opportunity.
Never say no.
You're right. Well, thanks. So, in case the record's not clear, I'm Ted Brady, Executive Director of the League, and I'm going to keep going off of what Karen was talking about. That's all right. It's great to see so many of you again in my new role. For those of you who don't know my background, I spent some time at the Agency of Commerce and Community Development and Senator Clarkson's old stomping grounds there. And then before that at USDA Rural Development. And before that, I spent 13 years with Senator Patrick Leahy doing community and economic development work for him there. And came here to VLCT just 2 years ago, a year and a half ago or so. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I believe our towns have a capacity problem. And I'm sure you feel that in every town you visit, your select board members that you talk to. In general, most of our towns don't have the capacity to do what we've asked them to do. And so what Karen's talking about with revenue sharing is our towns need additional financial resources to meet the obligations that they currently have, whether it be fixing culverts, replacing their town bridges, whether it be hiring town administrators, town managers, whether it be projects and grant management and grant applications, hiring grant writers, you name it. It's so deep. Financial professionalization of financial systems, computer systems, you go down this long list. Ultimately, the property tax is not enough money to solve that problem. Why do I know that? It's not just a gut feeling. We did a survey of our members. We do a survey of our members every year. This year's survey, the top 3 issues, can you guess what they were? Number 1 was housing. Number 2 was inflation. And number 3 was capacity. They don't have the capacity to do things they've been asked to do. So it's not just a gut feeling. It's not just what we perceive. These are real things that are happening out there. All of these 3 things are going to come to you this year, right? And I did want to preview that. Maybe you already know that from your caucus meetings and your conversations. How's housing going to show up? I assume because it's local zoning, you're going to at least have a say in this room. And that seems to be the focus of the conversation on housing in this building this year because of
Wonderful focus.
That's exactly what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that we see this 4-part solution to housing come this year to help our towns because it's the number 1 issue for the 2nd year in a row. Towns want help addressing this. They know that local zoning can be a powerful tool to change the way they permit housing to happen in their communities. And many towns have already undertaken some extremely progressive zoning rewrites, thanks to, in part, those bylaw modernization grants that the legislature's funded. Many other towns haven't had the capacity to do so, getting a message there, right? However, in order for that local zoning thing to be effective, as a quick reminder, about 40% of Vermont towns don't have local zoning. Do I have that number right?
It's low. This morning, I think the RPCs were in it.
It's a surprising number, and most importantly, that has not solved the housing crisis in the state. Those communities are not outperforming other communities that have more restrictive zoning. So obviously, it's not the silver bullet. It's one solution. The second thing we really feel strongly needs to happen, paired with local zoning reform, needs to come state Act 250 reform. In order for the process to be complete, if a town has a really great Act 250, really great local zoning process and planning process in place, Act 250 is redundant. So, you've heard this before. I know designated centers, villages should be exempt from Act 250 in places where they have this zoning effort. The third piece of this housing solution that we think exists is dealing with, and this one might fall into your bailiwick as well, the appeals process, which is if the town says we want housing in our community, there shouldn't be an ability for people to come in and second guess that. They shouldn't say, no, we don't want 10 units there. Well, the town already agreed through the zoning process that we're going to have 10 units in this area. And then the fourth and final one is obviously money. So that one, you'll have to play outside of this committee, I'm guessing. When it comes to inflation, so I just want to touch on the 3 things that we see. I don't expect that's a shock to anybody. It's just a reminder that everything we're doing is becoming more difficult. Paying cops, paying road crews. We have road crews leaving towns for quarter-an-hour raises to go to the town next door, right? And it's this competition. Same with police chiefs. There's a few police chiefs that have seen a couple of different towns in this state. It's not because they're bad getting shifted around. It's because some towns can't pay enough money to keep a great police chief on payroll. And then finally, just on capacity, there is a conversation bubbling that I know several of you are involved in the State House about building capacity in our rural communities. And I'm not saying I have a solution. Katie Buckley is absolutely part of that solution. The regional planning divisions are absolutely part of that solution. But like the book I read to my kids every night, Bear wants more. There needs to be more. Because it's not working as is. We need more resources in all of these places. There's some really neat ideas coming out of the Rural Caucus on the House side. I know there's neat ideas coming out of the Senate Economic Development Committee. And kind of, this is one of those things that we're gonna have to take a lot of different approaches to. There's this Working Communities Challenge thing that's happening out there. There's the idea of the BAA proposal that the governor has proposed that, again, this is something. We don't have this now. There is a crisis of capacity out there. So that's enough. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of where my head is and where I think our members' heads are.
What's BAA?
The budget adjustment.
Budget Adjustment Act, which is just beginning.
Yeah, we're gonna try not to use acronyms for at least a little while.
I apologize.
Are there, Senator Clarkson?
So thanks, we've already chatted about the capacity piece and how we crack that nut, because, you know, we feel it deeply, inequities in education, we've addressed inequities in education, we've addressed inequities in so many other areas. We have not addressed the inequities of our town capacities. And those of us who represent many towns know that the towns that have managers and staff are able to access a ton more stuff and get a lot more done than our towns that don't. And I also think this is a really important conversation with RPCs, because they have in large measure, I mean, they are a huge capacity. They have the ability to level the playing field here in large, if we built their capacity. So I'm not sure we need to reinvent the wheel here. I think we need to look at how do we equitably build that capacity, maybe with some of the things we have, but funding them more fully. So I just think we have some of those. Because when we were talking about the roving slaughter, they have to come up with a roving slaughterhouse sort of capacity building. And it's sort of similar. I mean, and we have lots of.
What's the terminology? It's not in our, the roving slaughterhouse,
That goes town to town, would solve these problems, would help them build capacity on a subject or on a project that they were working on. We have roving slaughterhouse that slaughter the capacity that goes to farm and deals with all the chickens and all the all the issues that get. Anyway,
those are heavily regulated as a former ag committee member.
Anyway, it's roving capacity is what I'm talking about. And we have it in several other areas. That happens to be one of them, which is why I used it. But we have some of that, and I think it's an inequity issue that we're looking at, and I think it's time we dealt with it. Agree.
RPCs are regional planning commissions, so just I know you know that, but for anybody who might be listening to the acronyms. Senator White.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So I'm so grateful that we have the league in today. I'm a fan. One of the things that seems to come up quite a bit in our communities in Windsor County is when they don't have the capacity and they don't have the staff and their inability to apply for grants. So I'm wondering if you are going to have a response letter to the BAA, because I was able to attend the rural caucus earlier. And one of the things that Kendall from the governor's office highlighted was having part-time folks who could work amongst like a group of towns. And I didn't know if that was a proposal. Yeah, so that's to Senator Clarkson's point. Did you work with the governor to draft this BAA, or would you be responding to that as a positive?
Yeah, we didn't work directly with them to develop that proposal. We have been participating with them. Katie Buckley and others in the ARPA world have been participating in weekly or bi-weekly calls with Deputy Secretary of Administration Doug Farnham.
Yes, he was the one who presented it.
And so absolutely, I think some of those conversations, I hope they've listened, have informed kind of what I believe there are 4 things that Budget Adjustment Act proposal does. It provides assessments of the community to see what needs they have. It provides some technical assistance to actually build some capacity in that town. It helps do grant writing, and then it does project management and grant management, which is a really complicated thing. My understanding, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if we intend to weigh in on that as much as say there's money for capacity in communities. If RPCs could apply for that money, if we at VLCT could apply for that money, if UVM could apply for that money, you name it, to provide that capacity, that sounds like a great idea. But we don't have a formal position on that particular proposal yet. Okay.
Well, I think we're gonna have to leave it there, because we do have more people waiting in the hall. But we obviously will have you guys back on a lot of things, I'm sure. And it's really great to see you. Thank you so
Same here.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you for starting the session.
This is great.
We get a good team.
We do.
And if you could just let the NEA know.
You got it.
we're-
Would anyone like a Godiva chocolate at this moment?
Well, I'm sure.
Chocolate time.
Is it a Roman chocolate box?
It is
I'd rather have a
chocolate.
roving chocolate box than a roving slaughterhouse.
Yes.
I hear you haven't been around long enough. Romaine slaughterhouse is a big issue. And it
I'm
built
picturing
There you go.
like a van that just.
How
you doing?
And it goes to my same thought is with, going town to town, but it's gotta be also sustained.
Yeah.
All right.
Colin.
Hello.
Apologies for making you
Yeah.
wait. We are behind.
All good. I will be quick.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming by. And since it's your first time here, we're gonna do introductions, and then you can tell us what you wanted, introduction to things, and then tell us what you want us to hear. You know me, but I'm Senator Ruth Hardy from the Addison District. Yeah.
Olivia Parker, the committee assistant.
Helen County Negotiation Central.
Rebecca White, Windsor.
Senator Bob Norris, Franklin, 1, and Albert, part of Grand Island.
Senator Watson from Washington.
Clarkson Windsor.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so tell us who you are and
Great.
go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'll take on my mask so you can see my face, for those of you who haven't, but I am gonna put it back on. So for the record, Colin Robinson, I am the political director for Vermont NEA. And it's a pleasure to be with you, pleasure to see some familiar faces, some new faces, and thank you for your work. As I said, I hope to be relatively quick, so hopefully you will still get your 2:30 break. But expect and hope to be back with your committee at some time in the future. So real quick orientation to Vermont NEA as an organization. We are a union that represents teachers and school support staff in every community across the state. We have about 13,000 members in our public schools and 2 of the 4 historic academies. 2/3 of our members are teachers, and 1/3 are school support staff, and about 75% of our members are female. The folks who you might see from Vermont NEA inside the State House are our Executive Director, Jeff Bannon, who some of you might know, our State President, Don Tinney. Our State President is elected by our members every 3 years, and they are elected from the classroom, but they are full-time release, meaning they are with us full-time during the term of their service. They're no longer in the classroom. Many of our most recent presidents have done it towards the end of our career. For those of you who may remember Representative Maida Townsend, she was our longtime president in the 80s and returned to the classroom and finished her career teaching in Winooski for about 20-25 years after serving as Vermont NEA statewide president in the 80s. And then my colleague, Rebecca McBroom, who's our general counsel, who's probably going to be a new face to those of you who are returning to this building. And she's been with Vermont NEA for a long time as our staff attorney, and she's transitioned into our general counsel position. So that's a quick orientation of some of the who's. On pensions, that is the primary reason why we come before your committee on occasion. And in the pension space, as you will, I'm sure, dig into significantly in the coming weeks and months, as well as perhaps this afternoon to an extent. We represent members in 2 of the 3 pension systems. Obviously, the Vermont State Teachers Retirement System, VISTERS. We represent the licensed teachers in that system, and that includes all public schools in Vermont, as well as the 4 historic academies. That is approximately 10,000 active teachers and 10,000 retired teachers who are part of that system. There are retired teachers and active teacher representatives to the VISTERS board. VISTERS is the acronym that people use for it. And we also represent the unlicensed school employees who participate in VMERS, which is the Vermont Municipal Pension System. And interestingly, folks don't necessarily realize this, but actually 2/3 of the participants of VEMR's are school employees.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, folks usually think of police, firefighter, other public works in municipalities, but actually 2/3 of the participants in VEMR's are unlicensed school support staff. So paraeducators, food service workers, custodians, school business officers, folks who don't hold a teaching license. I also I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the work of this committee and some of you in this committee, all of you previously served, as well as your predecessors, in the really monumental task and the challenging conversation we had over the past 2 years on the state teachers retirement system, as well as the state employees. It was incredible work that the task force did that culminated in a total package solution that has teachers having some changes to their benefits, having to contribute a little bit more, as well as the state continuing to maintain and increase their commitment to the system as well. It was a bumpy and rocky road at certain points, but ultimately we all came together to put something forward that is now law. And fortunately, as I think you'll hear in about a half hour, has had positive impacts on the health of the Vermont State Teachers Retirement System. So I just want to sort of acknowledge and thank you all and your predecessors for that as well. So looking ahead, there are 2 sort of technical adjustment issues that I think we might have occasion to dig into further detail with your committee on in the coming weeks and months. So I'm not going to go into the weeds on them. I just want to kind of give you the headlines on them. One is related to the cost of living adjustment for currently retired teachers. So there are about 10,000 of those. Retired teachers since 1981 have received a cost of living adjustment, COLA adjustment of 50% of the CPI. If you're a state employee, you get 100% CPI. Social Security is 100% of CPI. Teachers have had a more modest benefit and receive 50% CPI. Because of some circumstances related to high inflation in 2022 and how that's being applied in 2023, retired teachers this year are getting a COLA adjustment that's a little bit different than I think folks were expecting. And so we're hoping to have some conversations about making sure that their COLA benefit aligns with what the intention of everybody's always been as it relates to that 50% COLA benefit and that modest benefit they receive. The second flag for you all is, I believe you received a report last week from the Treasurer's Office. It was part of Act 114, which is the big pension bill last year. Teachers, as I mentioned previously, are contributing more to their pension system. And part of those contributions are being phased in over 3 years. We're in year 1, fiscal 24 is year 2, fiscal 25 is year 3. One of the core values of the Legislative Pension Task Force was to have those be progressive contribution rates, recognizing that teachers that are perhaps more senior have greater capacity to contribute to their pension system than somebody who's making $36,000 right out of undergrad with lots of debt. And so that was reflected in the agreement, what was passed. There was some clunkiness that had to be navigated in last spring as the law was being fine-tuned, or the legislation was being fine-tuned around how those rates are actually structured, those progressive rates are actually structured. So there was a study, we figured out years 1 and 2. Year 3 of the contribution is as recommended by the task force, with the request of the State Treasurer's Office study year 3 and beyond, and if that model of progressive contribution structure would be able to work. So I will leave it to the Treasurer's Office or you all to read the report, but I imagine that's going to be something that we will have to dig into and spend some time, hopefully not too much, but a little bit of time in here with you all, because that is a issue of import, even though it would be for a year and half from now, doing things this year will give everybody time to address it as needed. So that's the totality of what I was planning on speaking about today. I hope that I covered some of the basics, and always look forward to coming back and engaging with you, Madam Chair, and all of you on the committee in the coming months and weeks.
Senator Clarkson.
Colin, who's beginning that technical corrections bill?
We are in conversation with the Treasurer's Office about various pieces of that, and there's conversation about if it's a standalone bill or if there are other ways to address it through other bills that might be moving in the legislature.
Okay.
It's an active conversation. It's my.
All our bills are active.
I know. It perhaps is an insufficient answer to a direct question, but it's the
I was
best I
just
can give at
curious.
this moment.
There is no bill yet.
Yes.
But and I guess the second part of my question is are those technical corrections essential for, like, by when? What's the deadline on how essential they are?
I would say the contribution part of it, we have runway on. The COLA one
Is
yeah, I mean, we're talking about rates that went into, a COLA that was applied as of January 1 of this year. And so, the quicker it potentially is addressed, the quicker it's correct, it's able to be corrected if that's the direction that the legislature goes. The longer you wait, it just means you have to deal with it further down the road, sort of with a retroactive, language of some kind.
That's my question.
Yeah.
You answered it.
Yeah.
Already, we're like, shh.
I wanted to know.
Maybe not on the slaughterhouses, but on everything.
Not the roving slaughterhouse.
Yeah,
Do I have to separate these two?
We are separated, there's a whole table. But we're also united.
Soon, all right. And he's a partner.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We can
I'm
be
just like-
partners.
Anne's got Siri, she's got Siri over there.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions for Colin before we?
Oh, I've got lots, but maybe.
Well,
Senator Watson, go
Just
ahead.
full disclosure, I'm a member of the NEA. I'm one of the 13,000.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
It's always nice to have.
And thank you for being here and bringing your perspective as an active teacher. There are 3 active classroom teachers serving in the legislature.
Who are they? And?
Brady.
And Kate and Can, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Representative Brady and
Yeah.
Yes. And you.
You're the third one.
Aaron
Yes.
is Ted's wife.
Oh,
Aaron Brady, yeah.
But who's the?
Okay.
And Aaron and Kate.
Who's she? Oh,
Kate's rep.
But she's new.
Yes.
Okay, haven't met her yet.
All right, now we have that all on the record.
Well, that is on record somewhere.
Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. I know we'll see you again.
Absolutely.
And we may also have you back in to share your perspectives on Medicare Advantage plans.
Yes, happy to.
As, I don't know if you listened to part of our earlier conversation, but that's a big issue. And I know you have some experience with it, or your
Yeah.
people have experience, so
Yeah.
it might be valuable.
Absolutely.
So,
And actually, Madam Chair, I didn't mention my colleague, Mark Hage.
Yes,
But Mark,
thank you for that.
yes, but it is possible if we're getting how deeply in the weeds you want to get on something like that, it's possible my colleague, Mark Hage, who's our Director of Member Benefits and also a co-trust administrator of VHI, which is the healthcare pool that all school employees are in, might be the best one to speak to that, but we
Yeah.
can talk at a time
okay,
about it.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so
Great.
much. Nice
Yeah,
to see
thank
you.
you all.
Take
Okay.
care.
It's great to see you.
Absolutely, anytime. Okay, be well.
Bye. All right, we can go off live. I'm gonna give you 7 minutes, but I really want you guys back here at 2:45 so that we can get